Greetings and welcome to another lecture in Introductory Psychology. This one is in the field of social psychology, specifically social categorization. Now, as human beings, we form attitudes really quickly and easily. And one of the things that we tend to form attitudes about, even if we don't know what we're doing, or form opinions, or however you want to phrase it, is other people. Now, this can be called person perception, where we are indeed deciding what people are like, and very often we do this simply from looking at them. We tend to develop a lot of opinions, a lot of attitudes about people simply by looking at them, seeing what they look like, seeing what they sound like, what they act like. And we do this without even knowing that we're doing it. We really do. If you listen to someone's voice, for instance, just from the sound of someone's voice, you may form an opinion about them. We tend to think, for instance, that people with southern accents found in the southern United States, are generally not very bright. And you might form that opinion, that impression, simply from hearing their voice. That's person perception. Or looking at the clothes that a person is wearing, because I gotta tell you, and you may not like this, but it happens to be true, that when people are forming impressions about you, first of all, first impressions do matter. The first things that people think about you oftentimes stick, even if later on there may be evidence to show that those impressions were incorrect. It's difficult sometimes to change a first impression. And the other thing that I want to point out, unfortunately in some cases, is what you look like really does matter in what people think of you. Yes, I know, you're probably thinking like I did when I was younger. Oh, but it doesn't matter what I look like or what I dress like, or what matters is what's inside of me. What's inside of me is what's important. And while you're absolutely correct, that is not what people form first impressions about. People form first impressions about what a person looks like. The clothing they wear, the way they style their hair, the jewelry they might wear. Tattoos, for instance, can form an impression, particularly in someone a bit older, that may not be, something that is favorable. So what a person looks like definitely can make a difference. And this goes with any of a number of things. I mean, for instance, for both males and females, individuals that are considered attractive are viewed more positively pretty much in every single way. Whatever the societal ideas of attractiveness are, people who are seen as attractive are usually seen as being smarter, more competent, nicer, just more responsible. They are just seen as being better all around people. Now, we know that this isn't necessarily true. There are attractive people that are highly incompetent, and there are unattractive people that are absolutely wonderful. But we tend to form these first impressions simply on what people look like. Although there's an interesting conundrum here. Because for women, in particular, women in business or in a position of power, politics, that sort of thing, being too attractive can be a problem. Women need to be attractive, but not too attractive. Because if you have an absolutely gorgeous woman in a position of power, very often people will think to themselves, well, I'll bet she used her looks to get there, that she slept her way to the top, that she basically, because we all know, unfortunately, really attractive people are often viewed also as not very intelligent. Why? They don't have to be intelligent. They're beautiful. All they have to do is ask, and people will give them what they want. So obviously, if you have an incredibly gorgeous woman in a position of power, she probably got there by using her looks. Now, we don't think that as much about men, although sometimes I wonder. That may be some place where we're catching up. But so women need to be attractive, because if they're not attractive, then they're going to get dinged for that. It is interesting, for instance, to look at the different ways that men in politics and women in politics are treated. If you can remember the 2008 election here in the United States, you may or may not be able to, but you could probably come up with examples since. There were a couple of female candidates, one for president, one for vice president, although the one for president didn't get the nomination, that were treated very differently than their male counterparts. Hillary Clinton, for instance, was up against Barack Obama for the Democratic nomination for president. And Sarah Palin was on the vice presidential ticket for the Republicans that year. And it is interesting because they got basically harassed for things that male politicians never get dinged on. They got harassed, they got criticized about what they wore, about how they did their hair, about how they laughed. I mean, they were really going after Hillary Clinton for her laugh, and you don't hear them do that. You don't necessarily criticize male politicians for what they wear, where they do their hair, or the way they laugh, or whatever. Although I would point out that John Edwards in 2004 got harassed mostly because he had very expensive haircuts, and it was thought that wasn't manly. So yeah, they did ding him for that. But for the most part, males in politics do not get criticized or even disgusted about their appearance. Their appearance is not discussed. Their appearance is not part of what people are talking about with male politicians, but it is for female. And heaven help you if you're not very attractive and you're a woman who's running for politics, because they'll go, oh my God, she's a dog, don't vote for her. You don't say, oh my God, that guy is just really ugly, don't vote for him. We sometimes think ugly guys are competent because, they had to be to get where they are. They're certainly not very good looking. So for women, as I said, mostly for women, you want to be attractive, but not too attractive. Males have their own cross to bear in this particular thing. Except for males, it's height, how tall they are. Taller men are viewed more positively. They're viewed as more competent, they're viewed as smarter, and so forth and so on. In fact, one study found that in terms of making money later in life, being over 6'4" was more important, was a larger source of making all that more money, apparently, was linked more than getting honors grades in college. Which is why we have parents who, when their sons in particular are going to be short, who go to the point of giving their sons human growth hormone to make sure that they're taller. Because being short in males is being seen as a disadvantage. Because for men, if you want to be considered competent, you need to be tall, and so I mean it's really interesting the way that we view these things. For both sexes, it's important to be thin or in shape, because fat people of both sexes are viewed negatively. Although, again, women are probably viewed a bit more negatively about that, simply because women in our culture these days are viewed a bit more often on their appearance alone. Males aren't boiled down simply to their appearance in many ways the way that women are. But for both sexes, being overweight is viewed as bad. Overweight people are hired less, they're promoted less. And in fact, there was a very interesting study that was done a number of years back. In a town where the economy was good, there were lots of jobs, and so these researchers mocked up a resume, and they sent that resume to lots of places in town. When that person on the resume got called back for interviews, they would send the same person on all these interviews, but on half of the interviews, the person would wear a fat suit so that they would look as if they were 30 pounds overweight. The other interviews, they were their thin self. And the person acted the same way in all the interviews, but the thin version got more job offers than the heavier version did. Weight really does appear to make a difference. We tend to view fat people, for instance, as sloppy. Fat people are, not very responsible. They're certainly self-indulgent, because if they weren't self-indulgent, they wouldn't be fat. And they're viewed as unhealthy. There's all sorts of negatives that go along with being... Physical appearance matters. All sorts of aspects of physical appearance can definitely change the way that other individuals will view you. And sometimes, as I said, these first impressions that come simply from what you look like, what you dress like, how you present yourself, they stick.